want to grow in my marriage. I want to grow in my...
Y'all are at 30?
I'll be 35 years this October 1st. Yep, she's a very lucky woman.
Mm.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm a very lucky man.
What did you say all the time? Back then you were young and handsome, and now you're just handsome.
Handsome, exactly. That's right. We got married when I was young and good looking. Now I'm just good looking.
Welcome to Under the Knife, the podcast where we cut into topics such as politics, life advice, and medicine, and we do this with the precision of a licensed orthopedic surgeon. I'm your host, Dr. Craig Green, an orthopedic surgeon and elected public official. Julio, Melara, welcome to Under the Knife. We dissect life.
I like it. It's great to see you, baby.
Good to see you. So you just came from a speaking engagement, too.
I did.
You're always pouring into people, aren't you?
It's a passion, yes. Yeah. Yes.
So, you know, when I think of Julio, by the way, I want to get the listeners to know, it's not who you know, it's Julio. So when I think of you, I think of a mixture of passion and excellence with the roux of the Julio mix would be people. You get people. You tell us about IQ, EQ, FQ.
Well, as you know, my mother was my hero, and so my father left us when I was 4, and so the passion and the excellence and the discipline I owe to my mother. I tell people all the time I'm like Abraham Lincoln. Everything I am, everything I hope to be, I owe to my mother. Mm-hmm. And so I've been very, very fortunate because I learned some great lessons. My mother never went to college, but boy, she had a lot of wisdom. And so, over the years, I have a lot of passion for certain things, but one of them is for pursuing wisdom. And there's a great proverb that says that by wisdom, a house is built. Through understanding, it's established. And by knowledge, its chambers are filled with beautiful things. And it's a metaphor for our lives, right? Because the house represents our lives. And so if I restate it, it would be something like this, right? Through wisdom, our lives are built. Through understanding, it's established. And by knowledge, our chambers are filled with beautiful and precious things. So we've got to make sure that we have knowledge so that our understanding goes deeper, and then we can apply and make wise decisions, because those 3 qualities will determine the success and the fulfillment that we have in life. And so, when you say about the IQ and the EQ and the FQ, as you know, that's in one of my books. I learned real quickly that IQ is extremely important, but it's not the most important quality you can have. Obviously, you got to fill your mind with as much knowledge and keep learning, right? You can't ever exhaust your capacity to grow and learn. It's something we can do to the day we go to the grave, right? You got to have EQ, right? And so a lot of people hit the ceiling because they're very smart, they get a lot of knowledge, but they hit the ceiling because they don't have EQ, right? That emotional intelligence, the ability to communicate, the ability to connect, the ability to have conflict resolution, the ability really to read other people. And you need both to continue to grow and evolve. It doesn't matter, it transcends business, academia, athletics, ministry, politics. But while those 2 are extremely important, there's one more that you got to have, and that's the FQ. And that is your failure quotient, your ability to fail, your ability to fall down, your ability to be disappointed in life and get back up. I'm trying to instill this in my kids right now, because this generation is probably the most prosperous, the most blessed, the most isolated in the era of communication, and certainly coming through COVID. And so you got to have that resiliency, and it starts with the mindset.
Mm-hmm. I like that a lot. I just finished a book. I know you and I share books. You're a voracious reader. But I think it was Talib. He wrote The Black Swan. And one of the ones he wrote recently I really like is called Anti-Fragility. And it discusses that to some degree in politics and economics and in life. There's not a word in the English language that is the opposite of fragile. Resilient comes close, but it doesn't fully encapsulate it. And so he came up with the term anti-fragility. And what can we do in our lives, and what can the economy do to not be so fragile? And I think failure, think about working out. You're going to go work out right after this. That's what that is. I mean, you try to get to failure because your muscles will fail at a higher and higher weight. You can take on more. And I think that's a metaphor for life. Matter of fact, I think there's a lot to be said about working out, particularly in the morning, overcoming something that's near difficult to impossible, and you do it, Could be 3 sets of 8, 3 sets of 10, whatever. But in your subconscious and your psyche, you're going to go attack a problem, and it might be more weight than you can lift, but you're going to try to lift
That's
it.
right. That's exactly right. No, you're right. And I think the misnomer that a lot of people have is that they think that even failure is the opposite of success when it's not. Failure is part of success,
Right.
right?
Right.
I mean, you got to fall down and get back up, right? And have that
I can't
grit.
think of a truly successful person who didn't have
That's
a
exactly
boatload of failures.
That's
along the
exactly
way.
right. Yep.
Me and you included.
Yeah, I got a lot of scars.
Yeah. Tell a story. It's a roadmap.
That's right. That's exactly
Well, and that's
right.
like, you and I talk a lot about parenting too. As parents, we want to try to keep our kids from bad things happening, but you can't keep them from failure. That's one of the best teachers in life,
Yeah, every parent doesn't want their child to go through pain, right? But the truth of the matter is that if there's no adversity, there's no growth. And just like the caterpillar and the butterfly, right? If you
No
go in
fight,
that
no flight.
cocoon, that's right, man. If you let that thing loose, then the wings don't get strong enough where it could fly away and reach its potential.
Right.
Yeah.
So we talked about IQ, EQ, FQ. You and I talk regularly about the X factor. Tell me what you think about the X factor.
The X factor, man. I don't know how people do life without faith. That is probably the most important factor for me. As a matter of fact, I think it was Thursday, I was speaking to a group of men, and I typically, I love Francis Assisi's quote, right? Preach the gospel, if necessary, use words, right? So I just like to let my life, the way I serve, the way I treat people. But somebody asked me, on that topic, and I told them that, God did not create a world where He would not be needed. And there's a hole in all of our hearts that no amount of achievement, money, drugs, sex, rock and roll can fill. And so I've been real fortunate because I've had the revelation of who God is in my life and what He's trying to do through my life. And so I have a relationship, and that's an important component. Every morning when I get up, it's the first thing that I do. Renew my mind, I read, I pray. And then, frankly, every evening before I go to bed, I started to practice. There's a lot of mental health issues going on right now, right? And speaking of the word fragile, right? And the game of life is not one on the outside, it's one on the inside. And I tell my kids all the time, if you win the game on the inside, you'll win the game on the outside. But there has to be transformation. You've got to do something on a daily basis to make sure you have the right mindset and the right attitude. And so, one of those is every evening that I go to bed, I get on my knees and I practice gratitude. Now, look, you know me because I have a lot of issues, but gratitude ain't one of them, brother.
Neither's communication.
And so, man, I'm grateful that I live in America. I'm grateful for my job. I'm grateful for my friendships. I'm grateful for my wife. I'm just grateful for the life that I'm living. And even in my toughest days, every night before I go to bed, I find 3 things to thank God before I go to bed. And what happens is that it enters my subconscious. It enters our subconscious. And so your sleeping patterns, you even sleep more at peace. You're calmer. And what happens is that it's almost like a seed planted. I get up the next morning fresh.
And you're already positive.
And I'm already positive, right? And so it changes the frame of mind. And so, as you know, I'm a big believer. Attitude. I never forget in my 20s, I went to a workshop and there was a motivational speaker and he goes, attitude is everything. And but I've discovered he was wrong. Attitude is not everything because you can be positive, but if you're not productive, I'm going to fire you, right?
Yeah. you can't just sit there and be positive.
Exactly, right? But it is
necessary.
But it is the most important thing
Yeah.
that we bring to life.
That's
right? Attitude is the most important thing that we bring to our families, that we bring to our customers, that we bring to our businesses, that we bring to our community, that we bring to our vocation in life.
Well, speaking of gratitude leading into success in the next day, doesn't that remind you of The Gap and the Gain?
Oh God, I love that book. I love that book. Yes, man. So
Tell us how that book impacted you.
Oh my gosh, it just, it was it's almost like like I already had the filet mignon, but the gap in the game came in and
Crab meat and
crab
béarnaise.
meat and béarnaise, exactly, man, just on top. It was so good, and and I went and bought 20 books and I gave it to my management team because I have so many of them
Right.
that I noticed that live in the gap, right? That live in the gap, that think in the gap mentality, right? And I so many takeaways, but I think the thing that just hammered away for me is that this is the right way to live. That you live in the game, right? And I love, I journal a lot, as you know, and I don't journal every day, but I journal events that have happened in my life, the good ones, the bad ones, the lessons, what I extract when I hear, something, that resonates with me. But one thing that the gang talked about is making sure that you don't forget where you've come from.
Don't you think that's what in the Old Testament they would put stones of remembrance?
Yes, that's right.
And I think that's similar.
It's a memorial. That's exactly
Yeah,
so you don't
a
ever
reminder
forget. That's right.
of the good.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
And I think that, and I wish that could happen collectively in society, that we could say, okay, look how far we've come. Do we have challenges? Yes, but we're going to overcome those. We're going to not the doom and gloom of the end of the world.
Well, and you bring up a great point there. That is what I fight daily to help transform Louisiana.
Because we need to have the mentality of success first.
That's right. I mean, without that, it starts in the mind first, right? It starts in your mind, then it goes to your words. If those two are not aligned, and I hear so many people constantly knocking our community, knocking our state. Well, like you said, look, there's problems everywhere, but you can't build off of what's wrong. You got to build off of what's right. That's where you start.
When you can't get results if you don't have a positive mentality and positive words to lay out the map for that, right?
That's right. That's exactly right.
And that could be individually, but also I think collectively as a society.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure. Yeah.
I mean, you're a beacon of optimism, and that's throughout your teams, but also throughout your society. You do have a passion for society, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I have clarity on my purpose. I know not everybody does, but I know that one day
How has that clarity evolved over time?
oh my goodness, through pain, through adversity,
FQ.
FQ baby, yes, and through events in my life, through my children, and really going deeper in my spiritual walk with Christ. I think understanding, this whole year I start the book of Proverbs, and I'm on my 7th iteration. We're just trying to really soak it in, and so I started veering off to the book of Ecclesiastes, and it just hit me right. There's a time to be born. There's a time to die. There's a time to laugh. There's a time to cry. There's a time to sow. There's a time to reap. There's a time for everything. And I think that if we live our lives understanding that it's going to end one day, not when we get older, but sooner than later, then you start making decisions and start living with a different perspective than just status quo and going about it, right? Because we're all here on purpose. And God has a destiny and a purpose for every person. As a matter of fact, the science shows that every human being, and there's different iterations from Harvard to Oxford that I've read over the last 2 decades that show that the average person has 3 to 5 areas. One study called it areas of excellence. Another study calls it gifts. Some people call it talent. Call it whatever you want to call it. But every person has 3 to 5 areas of excellence, of gifting inside of them. And our job is to discover what those things are, right? And then water it, right? Water it, cultivate it, and develop that gift so that we reach our full potential, right? And
how do you, let's unpack that a little more. So, and your children, or what do you tell young people that may not know what their gifts are yet?
Yeah, so let's start with what happens in today's society. I do not like the pressure that universities put on freshmen. And let's use that for example. It's just one example. What are you going to be? Who the hell knows what they want to be at 17, 18, 19 years old, right? And so, I've told my kids, your career is not your decision. It's your discovery. So try things. Knowing what you're not good at or knowing what you don't want to do is just as important as figuring out what you want to do, right? I didn't know at 18 years old that I'd be a publisher, an entrepreneur, and that I would love. Look, I had a stuttering problem, and my worst subject in school was English.
You're a
I've written
publisher.
4 books, and I'm a publisher, and I get paid to speak, right? I mean, but that's one. Two, I think what I'm learning now. I had a young person ask me today, Miss Julio, what do you wish you knew back in your early 20s that you know now? And I said, I wish I would have harnessed patience, 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 patience. Too many people today, too many young people, and really even adults, the lack of patience, right? And patience is such a great weapon, right? In so many different facets, because patience is really like a weapon that brings truth or deception to the forefront. If you wait, I've seen it. Patience in deals, patience with relationships, patience in making decisions, as opposed to the book that we both read, right?
Hurry.
Yeah. The ruthless elimination of hurry. That one was a game changer for me, because remember, most of the mistakes we make in life, we're in a hurry. Things fall through the cracks, we're in a hurry, right? And I'll tell you, one of my great takeaways in that book was that in business, we got to move fast, right? But you don't want to be in a hurry. So you want to slow down enough, be enough strategic and creative and thoughtful and reflective so you can move fast.
Well, I read a book once, and in it was a fiction book, but in it, the character they were referencing, he said, smooth is the new fast.
Ooh, I like that.
And I need to
Smooth.
apply that to my
I like
golf
that.
swing. 'Cause it's all whir. Smooth is the new fast. And
That's good. I like that.
and you can tell, I mean, let's say a business deal, if it goes smooth, it seemed fast,
Yeah.
Whereas you can focus on fast and then have errors.
Yeah. So true.
Speaking of, you're the one that introduced to me the topic. This was probably how long we've been meeting, 15 years, 16 years.
Going on 15.
But every year, instead of having a resolution, you pick a word.
Yes.
And I've had words through the years that I've really tried to build on. And my word this year is rhythm. And you're mentioning Ecclesiastes, because I've been, and even fast and smooth, my whole life I've been, let's set the goal, let's get there. What are we waiting on? Go, 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 go. And realizing, you know what, there's a rhythm to
That's
life.
right. That's exactly right.
And the cadence.
Yes.
And I think I'm 48 just kind of learning that. I don't think I'll still ever be musically talented, but to realize there.
No,
are
I've heard you
rhythms.
sing. You're not. There's no hope.
I think it was Johnny Cash that said, "When you're happy, you hear the rhythm, and when you're sad, you read the lyrics." So I think songwriters understand life and rhythm well. So what's your word for the year?
Actually, I have my words here. My word for this year was grow.
Okay.
I wanted to grow my organization. We just finished doing acquisition, so we're definitely doing that. But I want to grow my marriage. I want to grow my.
Y'all are at 30.
I'll be 35 years
Wow.
this October 1st. Yep, she's a very lucky woman. No, I'm just kidding. I'm a very lucky man.
What did you say all the time? Back then you were young and handsome, and now you're just handsome.
Handsome, exactly. That's right. We got married when I was young and good looking. Now I'm just good looking.
Just ask her.
Honey. Yeah, so it's just I want to grow in my relationship with God. I want to grow, help my children grow. I want to grow my friendships. I just felt that this at the end of last year when I was looking at all these words, just this extra juice, this extra injection of a desire to grow. And I've always had it, but something just got to another level inside of me. So that's my word for this year: grow.
Let's shift gears and talk a little more about Louisiana and Baton Rouge. And you have that gap in the gain mentality. I personally am excited about the next 10 years. I mean, I think Louisiana can catch up, maybe even surpass some of the things we used to have troubles with. What are your thoughts? I know you're.
I'm with you. I want to go back because I actually had a client a couple of weeks ago say, Julio, one of the things that I like about you is that you're probably the most positive, optimistic guy that I know. And he goes, one of the things that I can't stand about you is because you're so positive and optimistic.
Cuts both ways.
Cuts both ways. I said, what do you mean? And I believe optimism is a competitive advantage in business and in life. And I think, again, I think like you, when you take a look at our natural resources in this state, when you take a look at the type of culture that we have, even when you take a look at everything from petrochemical to our port, we're the waterway to the Americas down the mouth of the Mississippi River, right? We have so much potential. And so I think this is why it's very critical. Any country, any state is only as good as its leadership, right? Any community, any company. So I think getting the right people elected, getting the right type of entrepreneurial ecosystem, we need more support in that area, because like here in Baton Rouge, people don't talk about it enough. We have an incredible young entrepreneurial ecosystem going on. There's some extremely talented
Tell us more about that.
people going on right
I
now.
don't think many people know about how
No,
great
they really,
it is.
really, no, they really don't. And to me, I had this conversation not long ago, with our local chamber, is that if you look at the cities and communities that have transformed, doesn't matter if you want to go back to, everybody was talking about Austin, but let's leave Austin. Let's talk about Birmingham, right? Which is probably even a better. They've had racial tension. They've had their economy being in the tank. Well, it was the entrepreneurial ecosystem, small business, and so helping these entrepreneurs scale their business, giving them resources so they can continue to evolve, and particularly in today's world where you have technology leading the way. And so, you have at Highland, Movish, who started that park. It's still evolving. It's taking a lot longer than he ever imagined. But one of the things that he wanted to do out there was to build a nice tech park where people didn't have to get in their car to go to a restaurant or leave, kind of like a little mini, I know this is not Google or Microsoft, but that type of environment, right? And a lot of people said, yeah. A lot of people said, you crazy? That's not going to happen in Baton Rouge. Well, guess what? He's taking the risk. He's taking the investment risk. It's taking longer. But again, most people don't appreciate the law of process, right? You're not going to have change overnight. I think that's one facet of it. The other facet of it is education, right? Because the challenge that we have in Louisiana and in Baton Rouge is we have so much poverty, and because of the lack of education, we have so much ignorance. And if you combine, the killer of all human potential is poverty and ignorance. So we got to help lift all tides, right? And to me, a lot of people talk about racial tension, and I think it's less racial, and I think it's more socioeconomic, because I see poor Latinos, I see poor white people, I see poor black people, I see poor Asians. I mean, and it's about getting at the root with education and exposure, right? And again, it's a heavy lift, but
one of the things you always say is you don't know what you don't know, and I think people that are stuck in that cycle don't know that they're stuck.
Oh no, which is the reason you need mentors. And look, it's not a one. Everybody's always trying to look to elected officials or to the school superintendent or to the pastor. I mean, it takes a village, literally. And the issues that we've got to solve in Baton Rouge and in the state, I think, are very, very similar with the state, and that is everybody having at least an understanding, right? That hey, if the business community does its part, if the elected officials do their part, if our educational leaders do their part, if the parents do their part, if the ministers do their part, right, then we can evolve, right, as a state and as and as a community. And that's again, I think for for too long, too many people have had different agendas, right? And so a house divided itself, as you well know, can't stand. And that's been one of our challenges.
And one of the hard parts is I think that you're going to have a generation of faithfulness in that before you see the fruits of it later. It's not going to be a week later where you see lives changed,
Well, on that note, I will tell you that I'm seeing a different mindset in this new generation.
In a good way?
In a very good way. I know,
What do you think sparked that?
I think the way they've been raised, and I think that the way, they question everything, and they want to know the why.
In a critical thinking way.
Critical thinking way, in a curious way. And I think, as you and I have talked about before, why is the most important question, right? And if you can get to the root of the why, and understand why this is important, why it's important to serve other people, why it's important to be kind, why it's important to help each other, right? But again, that's probably one of our biggest challenges.
You know, you and I share books, but also we have a little round table we do, and we're trying to get Walter Isaacson to come.
Yes.
He's one of my favorite authors.
Me too.
It reminds me of his book on Einstein. He said that Einstein, my takeaways from that book was Einstein was constantly curious, and he was willing to challenge the status quo.
Yeah.
And it seems like they've captured that, and that's kind of what I try to bring to politics. Like, I have a curiosity. Let's leave the R&D at the side and say, what's this issue, and how can we solve it?
Well, and those are the type of questions, you know, our motto in Louisiana for too long has been progress without change, right? And, you know, look, change is here, change is coming, right? And if you don't embrace it, if you fight change or you ignore change, you'll be swept away.
Yep. And it seems like that's happened on a societal level in Louisiana for far too long.
For
We're
sure.
due for a reset.
God, I love this state, man. And you know, one of my personal missions right now is to try and keep our young talent. I mean, our number one export is not oil or gas or agriculture. It's our people, right? Our young people. But hey, I'm in it for the fight, baby.
Well, look, keep fighting. You and I are neck and neck. We'll keep fighting together. Thanks for being here today.
Man.
Under the Knife, we dissect life.
Thank you, baby. I appreciate it, man. It's
Keep
great to see
fighting
you.
on, baby.
You got it.
Appreciate you. Thank you for joining us today, and a big thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in to this surgical exploration of politics, healthcare, and life. I've been your host, Dr. Craig Green. Remember to stay informed, stay sharp, and join us next time to see which of life's topics we'll dissect under the knife.